Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining us for this latest episode of On Art. I am Chase Dougherty, Curator of Contemporary Art here at the Delaware Contemporary. And today I am joined by several of our artists from the exhibition Remembrances, Recollections, and Retrospect. I want to thank everyone for being here and for joining me, but also, it's just been such a joy to work with each and every one of you to collaborate on this exhibition. And we're really excited to have you all here to chat a little bit more about yourselves and your artwork. So for this episode, we decided to do one overarching question to kind of reach into thinking more about your individual works within the show case itself. So just a brief intro on the show. Remembrances, Recollections, and Retrospect is a show all about kind of nostalgia and memories, but each of your pieces in the show, we're really thinking about on this spectrum of personal narratives and how we're thinking about collecting our own memories and nostalgia, but also kind of expanding and dismantling those barriers of time and thinking about collective histories and expanding on those histories that we've collected and appropriated. So I will allow each of one of you to talk a little bit more about where you fall within this spectrum and with your work. So I am just going to start, if it's okay with everyone. I will start with Rosa, because you're the nearest to me, if that's okay. Rosa, would you mind just telling us a little bit about who you are and how does your work in the exhibition kind of tell your story?
Absolutely. So all of my work is hand cut paper. Everything just kind of starts with an original photograph, and then I use that more or less as a stencil, and I just cut through these sheets, and it's kind of a sculptural process where I reveal usually a cityscape. And I think that's what what my work is most known for. And my work in general, including those cityscapes, was really born out of homesickness. And I think that that's so closely tied to the theme of this exhibition overall. So I started making these kinds of works when I was accidentally living in the suburbs, as I like to say, and I realized that I am way too much of a city person for that. And so it's just looking back at my memories and the things that felt homey to me, and they weren't necessarily the things that stood out to other people. Like, I'm originally from Philadelphia, and people are like, okay, Liberty Bell, cheesesteaks, I get it. And like, cheesesteaks are a pretty big deal, but that's not all that place is. So I was sort of putting forth my own memories. And then some of the works for this show, are a few pieces based on Coney Island, state fairs. They're things that a lot of people, especially East Coast people, can really connect to in a personal way. I know I shared one of the works online and somebody started messaging me about like, I used to eat hot dogs at that Nathan's as a little girl. And I'm like, I think Nathan's feels like a special place to a lot of us. But of course, we all experience it sort of in a different way. And I was toying with the ideas of souvenirs and mementos. So I created this little body of souvenir paper plates that I cut into with the same technique, but I didn't want to put the Liberty Bell on this Philadelphia plate. I was thinking about, what does Philadelphia look like to me when I remember it, when I think about my memories of growing up there, when I think about what Baltimore really looks like, when I think about Wilmington, like what sorts of businesses do I think of as belonging to the people of that city, not just these landmarks and these supposedly important places. So I think it was both personal work, but something that hopefully a lot of other people can connect to and can see, some of their life story in as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that even when we were installing the shows, staff was wandering through and they're like, I think that that's Baltimore. I think that that's Philadelphia. And, so definitely people were very much connecting with that. Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
fun to hear people guess.
Yeah. Okay, great. Next, can we talk a little with Daisy?
Yes, hello, hi. So the work that I have in the exhibition are 3 life-size paintings. They are mixed media in the sense that they are oil on top of abandoned or discarded family photographs. So it's part of this overarching series that I've been working on since 2014 called Forgetting Is So Long. And it's where I'm taking abandoned or discarded family photographs that I find from a variety of places like eBay, thrift stores, that kind of thing. Enlarge them to life size because I want the viewer, the audience, to have this sort of one-to-one connection with the person again. and then painting over them with oil paint. So, you know, on a very basic level, they're very much about memory, identity, loss, that sort of thing. You know, with the series itself, I'm really interested in this sort of idea of like, who do we remember and why? And sort of using paint as a way of elongating time that is inherently static in a photograph. A photograph is a moment, a split second, whereas painting can sort of break the rules of what time is supposed to be. So combining the two together is allowing the person who's inside the photograph to kind of be taken away from their specific time and place and sort of be present with the viewer and have this sort of visitation or encounter. So this sort of elongation of living memory is also something really important to me. And as someone who is, you know, when we think about the context of history and all of our lives, we exist as long as somebody sort of remembers us, especially if we are maybe not like a political figure or some sort of famous person in some sort of way. So sort of elongating living memory is a way of sort of like keeping us all sort of together in some sort of way. The way that I sort of collect these photographs is sort of falling in love with the person within. Maybe it's a gesture or a look or something that's really specific. Sometimes it'll be something that reminds me of someone I know or someone who's dear to me as well. Or in some instances, and in the case of one of the paintings, the bridal party, it's something that's specific to me. So like, you know, my father is Iranian, but I never grew up or met him. So that photograph is from Iran. So those photographs are very precious to me. So it's almost in some way creating a larger sort of relationship or kinship or larger family within this overall body of work. And, you know, I think that, you know, the idea of narrative and storytelling, to me, I'm interested in sort of story carrying, because I feel like the audience and the viewer are the ones that complete this work as they stand in front of it. There are these sort of connections that start to happen where they start to think about their memories, their families, their histories, and sort of bridge these connections with the people in front of them, which I find really sort of beautiful. So that's kind of like a brief overview. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too, to your point of the aspect of encounter, is one of the ways in which you wanted the work to be installed was, you know, a little bit lower to the ground. So it's very much this very reflective encounter. And I think that you definitely experience them that in that way, especially with how large scale they are too. So
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, great. Mark, would you like to go next?
Sure.
Okay.
My whole motivation, I guess, with painting is to try to get someone involved with the picture in a way that they're going to stop. They're moving around. They're being hit with all these images, all these noises and sounds, and with the internet even more so. And so I think that if I want them to stop and look at my work, I'm going to have to really have something that's going to grab them. Now, at that point, I have to stop them. Then I want to bring them closer to the work, and then I want to hold them in the work. But first, I think what we have to do is we have to, me speaking for myself, is to make them stop. And I think the way to make people stop is done through really with design, with color, shapes, contrasts, things that are going to create some sort of a excitement. And then I want to pull them into it, and then I want to get them involved in some of the aspects like the previous two artists were talking about, where they can start to reflect on their own life, what they've been through, how they relate to it. But I think first off, I want to get their attention. I want to make them stop because they have a destination, they're going somewhere, and my whole purpose is to make them stop and stand in front of my work, and then I want to hold them there for a while. So I guess, yeah, that's what I'm after with the work, is to create something that's going to make them stop in their tracks and look at it.
I think too, to your point on that as well, that was what initially drew me to your work, was the the contrast of those dark shadows with that kind of bright flash of light, that it really drew me to that. And just the content of it, it feels so informal, but then when you look at the painting, it's just so masterfully done that it definitely draws you in and holds you there.
Thank you. Yeah, in other words, I think that it's a lot of times, I talk to my students about this. There's so much work out there. There's so many drawings, there's so many paintings, there's so many images that we have to look at. And to try to get somebody enthusiastic over a technique alone, I think they're just going to keep walking. I don't think that's going to hold them. I think, first of all, people are attracted to something that will surprise them, or they'll feel that through, like I say, contrast, shape, design. That's the most important part of it to me. And then we're going to get them in. Then we're going to start to get them to participate in the work through the technical aspects and brushwork and edge and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Mark. Okay, great. Next, Pallavi.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
My work sort of is a way of reinterpreting the fragrance industry and sort of using natural ways to integrate scent and textiles, which are two of my favorite things, and sort of focusing on the power of the sense of smell. And I think my initial source of inspiration was, when I was confined to my apartment in 2020 at the start of the pandemic, and I had a little pouch of lavender. And I just found the scent of lavender so calming and soothing at that time. And I realized that sort of pushed me to focus on the importance and of the, how scents can really affect our wellness, how they can bring about a sense of calm, familiarity, how you associate it with certain nostalgia and memories. And so the pieces I have displayed at the exhibition are 6 pieces, part of a growing collection. And each is associated with a scent I associate with my hometown of Bangalore in India. So I've got a jasmine piece, which I associate with the jasmine flower, which is an important part of South Indian culture. We wear it in our hair. It reminds me of weddings in South India and the flower markets close to home. I've got a hibiscus piece, which reminds me of the hibiscus that grows in my parents' garden and the house I grew up in. And I've got the vetiver piece, which is called After the Rains, because vetiver is a bunch grass that grows in India. And when you sort of introduce water on it, it smells of wet earth after it rains. So my pieces focus on just the power of the sense of smell and the memories associated with each of those smells. And it's a sort of a way of me reconnecting with not only just nature, but also nostalgia, home, and my identity.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think too that each of the pieces, regardless of that, each one of them has a different scent, but they're all so beautifully different too. Just the textile uses that you have in each piece, they're all, just so unique. Very beautiful. So fantastic. Thank you. Okay, great. Next, shall we go with Pawn?
Hi, my name is Hantel, currently based in Dallas. The works that I have in the exhibition are all about self-reflection, which is something that I've been deep into because I just moved back to Dallas late last year after being away for 15 years. And it's just, I think it's just really strange to kind of like drive down very familiar roads and pass by these buildings that had just all the significance to me from my childhood. So there's been a lot of nostalgia just everywhere I go. And the reflection that comes with it, like, you know, I was just a pretty ignorant and naive person when I left Dallas. So coming back with perspective and revisiting those memories has been, you know, quite a wild ride. So I created these pieces in Dallas amidst all of that. And so it's all about just self-reflection and the imperfection of our memories. How, like, when I recall moments of the past, I don't remember everything with crystal clarity. I just remember like the specific bits and pieces. And so in the photographs that I have embroidered, they're all vintage found images. So there's a bit of nostalgia from that, combined with this nostalgia that I think hand embroidery tends to bring with people, but the reflections of the that are in the images themselves are stitched and pixelated so that they're distorted to kind of reflect just the impreciseness of our memories. That's it.
There's a lot of, you know, and the works themselves are so intimate and small, you know, it really allows for close looking. And I think that initially, you know, you could potentially walk by, but then you see that these photographs are embroidered so delicately and they're just really, really gorgeous. Yeah, it's a very exciting selection. Thank you very much. Okay, great. And then last but never least, Kate, if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit.
Sure. Hi. Let's see. Okay, so my work, I think, is the only sculpture work in the show. Is that right, Chase? Okay, yes. So the work's 2 collections of eggs that have been repaired. So start with that. And I, as a sculptor, I primarily work with found objects, but to the point that those objects have kind of a personal history meaning to them. So in this case, the piece Fault Lines and the other piece Chimera are made from eggshells from my daily routines of making breakfast, as we all do. Since I'm a new mom, I have seen how my daily routines have changed. And one thing that I observed pretty early in the pandemic at home was this just constantly growing pile of eggshells on the counter every single morning, trying to feed, I have twins, so trying to feed toddlers and a husband and myself. And the rate of accumulation really startled me, basically. And one of the things I like to think about when I'm using found objects is how are they, how can result of a daily ritual or a daily routine that feels mundane while you're doing it accumulate and have value over time. So what I started to do was collect these eggshells and repair them. So it was, the action is an analogy to my day caring for these little people, where you would start the day, you break something, chaos ensues, and at the end of the day, you put it back together. So each of these eggs, as they get repaired, is kind of a representation of the cycle of my day. That's the straight connection of the pieces, and the action of repairing them became a new ritual as I kind of buttoned up the day. On the other side, I like to think about what objects I'm using as and how they relate in history. So the egg is kind of a universal symbol of fertility. It's a birth thing. It's related to the earth, and it shows up in all sorts of cultures throughout history. So by using something as simple as the egg, but also as layered and dense and important to people, on a whole, it allows the viewer or whoever's looking at the work to relate it to themselves. So the work is incredibly personal. And I kind of think of my sculptures, whether they're representative or not, as self-portraits, like time and time again. So making that draw between like what's personal to me is also personal to you, this person on the other side of the world, because we have this, this object in common. I also try to like make the sculptures themselves visually very simple and like pare things down to like the very minimum amount of information that you need to get the idea across and to take your own input to it and make a new narrative. So one of the ways that I do that, if I have something so simple as an egg with a crack in it, is by like making sure that the title to the work adds a new component that you can draw a new analogy for. So the work is called Fault Lines. And really when we think about what a fault line is, it's a crack in the earth that, causes a lot of uncertainty. And very specifically right now with climate change happening, I am observing, I guess I should hedge. I'm from California originally, and I live in Philadelphia now. So I'm observing this thing happening to this place on the earth that feels like very precarious and very dangerous. And it's a place that to me like feels like home, even though I don't spend time there anymore and I haven't in a long time. Seeing it like being set on fire and having precarious earthquakes or droughts or floods, it feels very unnerving. So taking a piece that visually is an egg and like so comforting and related to one like universal truth, and then applying this new term to it of fault lines, like there's a visual distinction because you can see on the egg the fault line for each egg, which is the most fragile part of the object when it breaks. And then just, I don't know. There's a lot to anyway, there's a lot of layers in a really simple object is kind of the idea.
I think too, especially with your work, something that, just really fascinated me and really drew me to the project in and of itself is just the number of eggs and the impact in the quantity. And that's something I really am excited for people to experience when they walk in the gallery, because I think that has a huge effect.
Thanks. And, it's kind of a trick, because if you can think about, one egg a day, it's what the FDA recommends or whatever, but really like all of that, because of the number of people that's involved, the family, like all of that consumption happened in like the span of 3 months. Mm-hmm. And I think if you apply that to like our populations, you can really see that like individual impacts can accumulate and be big.
Yeah, definitely. Fantastic. Thank you. Well, great. Well, does anybody have anything else they want to add?
I wish that I could see, this is Mark, I wish I could see the show. So I've seen the eggs, I saw the sculpture in photographs, but I haven't seen everybody's work, but I really wish I could see it so I could be more tuned into exactly what this show looks like. But it sounds so interesting what I've heard, but I have seen the eggs, the sculptures, and they were very interesting, and I'm sure the show is going to be beautiful. I mean, I'm sure, so I look forward to seeing it, but I wish I had been up there to see it before we had this talk. I'd be a little bit more informed, but it sounds like so interesting, and there's a real range, interesting range of ideas here, that all within this theme that you've set up for the show, but all the ideas have, they're really interesting. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. I think that, my overarching goal for the show was to really show how complex memory is, but then there's also just so many nuances to that. And I think that everybody's work just really works so well, in tandem with one another. And I think we have some really great dialogues going on in the gallery space. So I'm really excited for you all to see it, for you all to come. And for everybody who's listening, Remembrances, Recollections, and Retrospect is going to be up until May 30th, and it is located in our Beaverham Gallery, as well as our lobby space, as well as the Draper Gallery. So everybody, please come and see it. And thank you all so much for being here and talking a little bit more with us.